Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Rama
Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our Bhagavad Gita circle this evening, and we are starting a fresh new chapter, chapter 2, and it will be given by Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we'll go straight into it. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Prabhupada ki jai. So, good afternoon, dear devotees. So, as was announced earlier, we're continuing today's Bhagavad Gita circle with chapter 2, which is entitled The Contents of the Gita Summarized. And we're starting at the beginning. So, chapter 2, text 1. Sanjay Vacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashupuna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana. Sanjay said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan, Krishna, spoke the following words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudan is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nations cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Samupastitam Anaya Jushtam Ashwagyam Akirti Karam Arjuna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. My dear Arjuna, how have the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagwan throughout the Gita. Bhagwan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. Absolute truth is realized in three phases of misunderstanding. Absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagwan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11, this conception of the Absolute Truth is explained thus. Varantita Tattvavidas Tattvayaj Jnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Idi Saptyate. The Absolute Truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the Absolute Truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the Absolute Truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. These three divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the Absolute Truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the Absolute Truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas, or the Transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the Absolute Truth, are the topmost Transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the Absolute Truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. The Sanskrit word Bhagwan is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached. But no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord of Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because no one can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 1. In the Bhagavatam also, there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Ete chamsakala punsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mirayanti Yuge Yuge. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 28. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the source of both the Supersoul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kuta, where from? Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as the Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called the non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsmen. Text 3. Kraivyam partha netattvai upapadyate shudram hridaya daubalyam tvakvotishta parantapa. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only. And if the son of a Brahmana acts impiously, he is a Brahmana in name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he will be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit his personality. Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude for the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives. But Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity mere weakness of heart. Such false magnanimity was not approved by any authority. Therefore, such magnanimity or so-called non-violence should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna. Text 4. Arjuna vacha katam bhishman aham sanke dronam cha madhusudana ishubi pratiyotsyami puja havari sudanam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Drona, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather, Ugrasen, or his teacher, Sandipani Muni? These were some of the arguments offered by Arjuna to Krishna. Text 5. Gurun Ahatva Gurun Ahatvahi Madhu Mahanubhavan Shreyo Bhuktam Bhaiksham Api Haloke Hatvarta Kamam Stu Gurun Iheva Punjita Bhogan Rudira Parikran. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they should not have accepted such a position simply on financial considerations. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers, but Arjuna thinks that nevertheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them will mean to enjoy spoils tainted with blood. Should I go on one more? Oh, it's 6:19 now. One more? Okay. Text 6. Nacheda vidma kataran nagari nogario yadva jaye na yadiva nujayu yan eva hatsva na jije vishamas devastita pramuke datarashtra. Translation. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna did not know whether to fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is a duty of Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of our Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in a royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities, combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes, over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for reading up until now. And we have about 8-9 minutes to ask any questions, any comments, share a takeaway. Really interesting chapter. As you were reading, I was really realizing how this, what we have heard in the past 6 verses is a very similar challenge that a devotee, experiences in Krishna consciousness. Do or not do, do or not do, and then we get so attached to the relationship. So this is a very nice verses that we've heard. Devotees, would you like to ask your question? Any thoughts that's coming to your mind? Any reflection? Would like to hear a takeaway or a point on clarification? Please do jump right in. We have about 7 more minutes before we end the circle group. So do go ahead. As the devotees are thinking, what's coming to my mind is to my limited understanding is what I've heard from the 6 verses. It's a challenge between Arjuna asking the Lord, but these are my relatives, you won't do that to your grandpa and your father. Why should I do that? And it's a very similar challenge, like I mentioned, that we devotees go through in our devotee society. How can we differentiate? I think is that, and in the first verse, Prabhupada used the word compassion. Now, if we pull compassion in, how can we differentiate subject from object?
Hare Krishna. So first we have to understand the circumstances that Arjuna found himself in. Second, we have to understand Arjuna's training. The situation is a situation of war, but it was not an ordinary war. This was a war to establish truth over untruth. So it's a question of the principle. The principle behind the war was what was important. And the warriors were on different sides based on their own choices that they had made. The reasons for Drona and Bhishma, as stated here by Sri Prabhupada, they considered the financial part of it, they were being supported by Duryodhana and his father, Dhritarashtra. And so they felt in that way that since they are in their company and subsisting by their company, then therefore they should fight for Duryodhana. Of course, if you've seen the Mahabharata, you know that both Duryodhana, Senapati, Bhishma, as well as his teacher, and that was his teacher for Arjuna also, both had their hearts on what the truth was, but they found themselves in a situation. So basically, in a sense, they were boxed in. But Krishna was having Arjuna fight against them to make the point that in all circumstances, we should be careful enough and controlled enough to stick with where truth is. That is the big lesson. Krishna is on the side of truth. And if we take the side of the truth, then we are with Krishna. And therefore, no matter what obstacles there are, in the end, we will in fact satisfy Krishna's objectives or Krishna's senses, whichever way he's planned. So the question of relatives, sometimes, yes, it becomes a situation that's difficult. Some of us may not have experienced this, but there are a few of us, myself included, that had to make a choice between family relationship or Krishna consciousness. and family members on both sides. A marriage on both sides, you know exactly what I mean. My side and my in-laws side were against Krishna consciousness. Those who spoke up, they didn't speak in favor of Krishna. And so I was torn. And I prayed, and everything that happened pointed to the fact that it was better to stay with Krishna consciousness. As a matter of fact, it was prompted to me that you've come a long way to get to Krishna consciousness. Because it took quite a while and many situations for me to finally get to a place where the answers that I did not know, the questions that I did not have answers to, were being answered. Yet I had to face the family on the other side. And they said, no, don't be part of it. And it was a long struggle. It took a few years before finally they had to accept the fact that I was not going to change my mind. So we all fight our little battle of Kurukshetra. And sometimes it involves family. We have to be careful, because in the end, if we stay with what is right, which is Krishna consciousness, the transcendental, not just religious, but transcendental, in fact, Sanatan Dharma, eternal religion, religious situation that we are in the end, even some of those members may see what is right, family members, and they sometimes might turn to our side or at least tolerate. So, yes, we will face one challenge after another, and we have to stay in Krishna consciousness no matter what, whether it even involves some of our family members. That's family members are at the body level. We have to remember that. They are at the body level. So you do your best to maintain relationships, but Krishna consciousness should always come first. And that answers every question if you put Krishna consciousness first. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I think the test is always, whether it's Krishna, whether it's family, and then the Lord tests us to see how much we want him and how much we're able to give up and, to be detached from loved ones and
For his
give
sake.
up so much, give up, because even in the old family, in the old days from our God family, many of us did not come from Indian backgrounds. Many of us come from Christian backgrounds, and each and every one of us had to, quote unquote, be cut off from our family because we wanted to surrender to Krishna. And that was definitely a very difficult time, and I think that's where the Lord tests our faith or our trust in our spiritual master. I think, to see how much we want the Lord and how much we're willing to give up family attachments so that we can come to the Lord. That's a big one. Yeah. Now that you're speaking about it, I remember those days. Wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. Any questions? If we are at the 6:30 mark, but just wanted to respect devotees. If you have any questions, any comments, any takeaways, please do jump right in. And if there isn't, it's 6:30. We thank you all for joining us. Vanchakaptibhyascha kripasindhabheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
And looking forward to seeing all of you this Sunday for our Sunday program. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare